Hello, everyone. And it's my pleasure to welcome everyone on our podcast by Voice of Crypto. As you guys must be familiar, anyone who's joining for the first time or our regular viewers, we organize Voices of Web3, wherein we bring some of the top voices of the Web3, crypto, and blockchain space. And I'm really excited to have with me on the stage today Rick and Juan. They have a lovely SocialFi app called Discover. We'll talk all about that and their journey in this space. But before that, welcome Rick, Juan to Voice of Crypto, and it's my pleasure to have you gentlemen on our show this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I think my first question to all my guests is how did you stumble upon Web3? I'm sure you guys were not in this rabbit hole whenever you started your journey or your careers, but how did you guys ended up in this space?
Yeah, I'll go first. It was like 2016. I was at Boston Consulting Group, and we were doing research on how do you create provenance for diamonds, and like how do you trace diamonds safely and securely um, on like possibly on like a protocol. And so we started with Ethereum, and we were working with the Ethereum blockchain, and we ended up working with De Beers on this. So with De Beers, we traced diamonds. And this is like 2016, 17, right when Ethereum was taking off. Remember sitting in the room and everyone's like, it's like $40. And everyone's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. It's so high. But definitely times have changed. But over the past, oh, wow, 8 years, it's been highly focused on building like Web3 enterprise applications. And then over the past like 3 or 4 years, focused on Web3 consumer applications.
So my path into it was kind of interesting. Previously, I was running a social video publishing website where we were our application and platform where we were working with all kinds of big YouTubers and social influencers. And in about 2015, 2016, I saw the rise of the crypto influencer. And it was fascinating to me because crypto was one of the first industries born after social media marketing, and YouTube was state of the art. And so I watched that. And when we sold that company, I ended up having friends that were also interested in crypto. And we invested together, and that turned into a full-blown crypto fund called Enigma Capital. So started out first on the investing side, but had always been a startup kind of founder entrepreneur also. And so then when Rick and I ended up working at the same place, building these crypto and fintech applications for big corporate partners, that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating journeys. But how did you guys stumble upon the name Discover? And what was, I think, the first thought or the Kickstarter thought that you guys had before you wanted to launch or work on Discover?
Yeah, I've never liked vowels in names. I always thought they looked better without them. And it's still, people still can get the name without the vowels. But like to me, it was like, how do you like something mysterious, something that like made you wonder what it was.
Mhm.
And to me, like when I saw the domain DS, like went through a lot of iterations, like Greek words, Roman words, things like that of like, oh, what could this be? And I even think some of the old repositories have like this name called polis, which was like society in Greek. But like once I saw the name DSCVR, I was like, oh, wow, that's short. It's to the point. It's easy to Google. And then, obviously getting .coms is so hard, and getting like .xyzs was a little bit more difficult. But I saw .one, .one, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting domain name. And it ended up like, it's become like pretty popular since we've picked it. But I still think the name like Discover, like discovering new content, and it's like constantly pun intended while you're talking about it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really apt because when you think about it, a lot of the activity in crypto and crypto enthusiasts and traders discovering projects happens on social, right? So it's really about the discovery of what's next for you on your crypto journey and investing.
Absolutely. Our topic for today, or the topic of discussion that we've given to today's episode, is SocialFi trends decoded. I think first we should decode the word SocialFi in itself. We've already seen DeFi, and we saw a big boom in the DeFi sector as well. I think a year ago, we're expecting another boom, hopefully. What exactly is SocialFi? How would you decode it to, let's say, a noob in the Web3 space?
Yeah, decentralized finance is pretty straightforward. It's finance that's been decentralized. But like SocialFi still has the connotation of being decentralized social, but in reality, it's like social finance also because it's like
Mhm.
we're very transactional human
Yeah.
beings, I guess, right? And we're constantly moving to, and like within the world of Web3, it's about tokens and how we're moving tokens around between users.
Yeah.
And so when we originally launched the platform, it was very simple to transact tokens on the platform. Like, you as soon as you signed up, you were given a wallet, and that wallet was ready to transact right away. It was gasless also, so you could interact from like the exact second you connected to Discover, and the exact second you signed up, you could immediately transact with tokens. And then so to me, it was like to me when in SocialFi, there's a lot of different ways to think about it, but to me, it's really about how financial mechanisms are moving freely and friction without friction in a
Mhm.
social context. And then we see that quite a bit. We see, people bringing in airdrops to give away to users, and users are receiving them directly to their like Discover account, which there's an embedded wallet because the user got a non-custodial wallet when they signed up. And so we're able to now transact freely and like without friction directly from the Discover platform. And you see this through like token tipping, token trading, and airdrops and different types of mechanics like that. And now we have the ability to buy uh, non-fungible tokens like NFTs through the feed directly, and you'll be receiving different types of NFTs and FTs, so tokens directly through the feed itself, because the user from the millisecond they've signed up is a native Web3 user because they're given that wallet. Now they can
Mhm.
interact directly through our platform with tokens, hence being able to have that kind of idea of being SocialFi.
Okay. Anything to add, Juan?
No, I think Rick really said it. It's the combination of social media and crypto fintech functionality, right? And that's really different. And I think because Web 2 was born in an era where there wasn't even fintech regularly in all kinds of consumer applications, right? So now we're more than a generation on from that. And we're very lucky to have all of this crypto technology, which essentially is fintech. And
Hmm.
so it's really platforms that combine the two.
Right.
Yeah. There's like even like building on top of that, in Web 2 now has more financial mechanism, but there's a lot of friction in Web
Yeah.
2 for financial mechanisms. Web 2 has done an incredible job of reducing friction to becoming a creator. So, it's like I could become a TikTok creator overnight. We're broadcasting across multiple Web 2 social platforms at this exact moment. But like where Web 3 really is going to be important is reducing friction between those financial mechanisms. So you'll be directly receiving tokens within Web3 without having to go through like waiting periods. As soon as you have the token, it is your token. And then that
Mhm.
token is instantly liquid in a lot of situations. Where in Web2, the liquidity of the token or the value that you receive, there will be friction from the time that the user's at between the time the user receives it and the time it's actually liquid for the user. And I believe in like Web3, there'll be, we're seeing this already. Solana has Solana Pay. And if
Mhm.
more applications use Solana Pay, that means that not only is there liquid tokens liquid within from a Web3 perspective, it becomes liquid from a like normal perspective from traditional Web2 commerce websites, right? So I do think like the idea of SocialFi to me is like, yeah, I've become a content creator through the power of different types of the mechanisms that we've already released, but now I'm financially benefiting through Web3 instantly and becoming liquid instantly. So I could like the dream situation is we're talking right now, and this is a SocialFi powered website, and I can instantly receive some sort of like financial benefit. Like I receive a couple bucks, let's say USDC, and I'm standing in line at Starbucks. And by the time I've received it and I'm talking on live, I tap my phone and instantly pay with these Web3 mechanisms. And I think that is going to be, that's like the ultimate North Star. But I do think we might already be there. And so it's really going to be like what amazing things is Web3 going to achieve next? So that's, to me, what's really going to be exciting.
And I think it goes beyond just the creator, but it also involves the community. I mean, back in the days when I was working with YouTubers, they always really loved their community and they were trying to give back to their community. But that's not easy on YouTube. There's no mechanic to go, hey, I've received YouTube ad dollars. Let me just go tip out my best users. Doesn't exist. But on a Web3 social platform, that's possible, right? Because they all have wallets, they all have identities. You can figure out who your best users are. You have the relationship. And so you could make, $1,000 from this video in the next 30 minutes and look at who's watching and who's commenting and go, hey, I want to give out $5 to that great comment, right? But of course, in crypto, right? So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
We are in fact doing something like that. We do reward our commentators, but like you mentioned, it's really tough to guess or figure out who the top commentator is. So we usually randomly pick or come up with certain gimmicks to just figure out who it would be. So this would have been great had we come across this earlier.
Well, it brings up an interesting point that open APIs are broken in Web 2, right? So if you look 10 or 12 years ago, there were some amazing APIs on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where as a creator, as a startup, a small developer, or even a bigger company, you could build interesting applications. You could figure out things like who were your top fans and things like that. And those have all kind of gone, right? Because those platforms had no way to monetize them, so they couldn't sustain them. So Web3 also opens up the opportunity to rebuild those, but this time have a sustainable business model behind them. So that's something else that we're very excited about, because when you bring back those APIs, you get people building really interesting things.
Yeah, like just like on-chain data. There we go. And I think it's choice. Users will choose to be what they want on chain and what they do not want to be on chain. I think that's like my current belief and like the healthy approach. But I do think like you'll be able to instantly validate users just through on-chain data right away.
Absolutely. So when we talk about our target audience in terms of SocialFi, is it just Web3 users, or are we also looking at Web2 users? And all right, I think because I do have two questions, but I think I'll go ahead with that later.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, no. Sorry. So like, this is the thought. Like, I think building Web3 consumer apps a couple years ago, it would be very hard to target a Web2 user, right? And then to me, it's like, for us, we have Google Auth, right? Like, and that Google Auth gives you a non-custodial wallet. It can turn any person who is a current Web2 user, like instantly into a Web3 user. There's no friction there. And they have wallets. They could transact with those wallets. And I think this is just going to get easier and easier. And we always talk about the Web 2.5 user, and like, it's like, Web 2.5. I think Web 2.5 was last market kind of word. I do think we're going to keep bumping that number down until it's like, well, it can be Web 2. It doesn't matter. And then eventually it's just like, there is no such thing as Web 2, Web 3. Is your application modern or not? And if your application's modern, it has Web 3 it's applicable to any kind of Web 3 mechanisms.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, when we founded Discover a couple of years ago, it was the hardcore Web 3. Right now, a lot of the users that are coming on board are the Web 2.5. Like, they're curious about crypto. They're maybe even like passionate about crypto, but they're a little uncomfortable around the mechanics of of interacting, right? And we smooth over that. But the infrastructure that we're bringing, in a few years, people are going to be able to just have a social experience and do things transactional without even thinking about the fact that it's crypto. It's like we're releasing an open API in 2024 so that third parties are going to be able to publish into our newsfeed and build external applications that use both the social graph as well as the transactional capability. And those applications wouldn't have to be obviously crypto, right? It's like a gaming company could build a game on top of that, and you could win something that on the back end is, an NFT or certain points that translate off the platform into a real game. And yes, all of the mechanics of that are, the crypto fintech, but to a user who's into games, they wouldn't have to think a ton about that. So I think we're approaching the crossover, right? To where it can go to mass, and people don't have to think about it.
Well, when we talk about the crossover, the big shift from Web 2 to Web 3, what sort of an internet do we imagine? Would it be a decentralized internet? And if so, how are social media apps going to compete then? I mean, would we see Discover competing against, let's say, a Twitter, X, or an Instagram? How is the future of internet going to look?
Yeah, I think we may have different opinions, but I think like X will always be X. Like, I don't know. Do you ever say like MySpace is a Friendster competitor or Facebook is a Friendster competitor, or Facebook is a MySpace competitor? It's like MySpace is MySpace, Friendster's Facebook, Facebook, TikTok's TikTok. It's like new types of technology and new types of social applications will evolve, and they'll have their own unique way of addressing consumers. And I think we're still the very early days of that from a social perspective. And I think Discover is definitely on the bleeding edge of like where it's possible that we could take a SocialFi application and address a new audience of people who are agnostic to whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, and they're just more interested in the modern mechanics that are being introduced to social.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with Rick. And, when you look at it, we're now in a phase where we're still an emergent social platform. And so if you look at platforms like Twitch or Discord, when they emerged, nobody was sitting there and was like, Twitch is replacing my YouTube, right? Or Discord is replacing, Instagram, right? It's also, right? It was like, I'm into gaming, therefore I'm also going to spend time on Twitch and Discord. And then over time, platforms like Discord become more mass, and they start to take up a larger share of your social. But I think we believe that there are going to be opinionated social applications in their interface that are not absolutely interchangeable, but the user is just going to have more choice as to what's their mix of the interfaces that they like engaging with on a daily basis. And then I think you may also see the rise of some very niche applications that allow you to view social data in a different way. So I'll give you an example. Back in the Facebook era, when there was Open Graph, people actually built startups that visualize your news feed in a different way. So there was like a startup prior to Instagram that was showing you photo-only newsfeed of Facebook, right? So I think you may see some things like that. But the beauty of it is, I think you're still going to have big, strong brands. So it's not going to be totally fragmented, but then the user is going to have a lot more choice.
Absolutely. So when we talk about SocialFi, I'm sure that there's a rise in SocialFi products, apps, but where are the trends going as a sector? Where do we stand? How far have we come from when the SocialFi trend began?
Yeah, it's interesting. My earliest SocialFi app was Steam It by Dan Larimer. And, that was a Reddit style site where you would go and you could like tip people. You could earn points earn tokens by making posts. I think I remember what year that was. That must have been like 2016, 17, 18. But it was like a really interesting experience within SocialFi. And then since there was something before that on the Bitcoin forums, I always forget what it was called, but like very similar mechanic, but mostly focused around transacting within Bitcoin, within the forum, tipping. And then we saw Steemit move to voice. We saw a couple others emerge, but I do think we're fanning out. I think there's a lot of SocialFi applications being built, but I think it's super important that the ecosystem experiments within Web3 social. And I think it's important as someone who's interested in Web3, like check out the experiences that other platforms may offer, because I do think it's going to be a combination of a lot of different applications as time progresses, because I think Web3 social is going to be very modular, and from a Discover perspective, I see and through what Juan was describing, the open API as a way that people can get modular with the applications that they build within Web3, and it can become there's opinionated approaches and then an unopinionated approach. And I think Web3 social is going to progress towards this opinion that it is Web3, but unopinionated in the way that how users interact with these applications and the applications that are built within that application. So we're going to see this kind of modular approach to social that allows other creators that are not necessarily like content creators, but developers who are able to emerge within these applications.
All right.
I think the other way to look at it is that we're still in the early stages. And in those early stages, we've seen applications that were far more traditionally social. And at the other end of the spectrum, they were far more pushing the fintech. So, Steemit, like Rick was mentioning, more on the social spectrum. And then you have, things like Farcaster and Lens more on the social spectrum. And then you have the emergence of the things that are strongly on the fintech side, like Friendtech. And that's really on the trading kind of aspect of it with a lighter weight social layer. And so I think as this matures, we're going to see kind of a convergence, bringing together these experiments and dynamics on both sides into something that really combines them.
Yeah. Composable, very composable future within Web3 social.
Yeah. So a lot of Web3 entrepreneurs, in fact, most of the Web3 entrepreneurs talk about onboarding the first million. When we talk about SocialFi, what would be the key roadblocks to onboard the first million users onto any platform?
Yeah, I think it's, one is like removing the concept of wallets need to change. The perspective of a wallet needs to change, right? Like we all know we have our hot wallet and our cold wallet, where our cold wallet is, it doesn't really touch anything. And our hot wallet is like, okay, we might get drained. But I do think there's going to be even a layer on top of that, which is, I don't know, I've been calling it the lava wallet, but I know there's a better word. But these embedded wallets, you're seeing a lot of progress towards embedded wallets. But the whole point that this is solving is that it makes the friction of actually becoming native Web3 a lot easier. And we've seen this on Discover, our embedded wallets. It's very rare that users actually go out and create other wallets. They're just storing all their Web3 social kind of finance that they receive, all these tokens they receive in this wallet. But even stepping back and being like, okay, what is this? And it's almost like, in the real world, I had the same paradigm exists. We've got our bank accounts and we don't plug our bank accounts into everything. So we have debit cards, and then our debit cards are hooked up to all of our Web2 social apps or interfaces like Uber. But what happens? What is cash? Where does that come into play? And cash is a lot of money that we put into our wallet and then one day kind of vanishes over time. But to me, I see there's this emergence of a new way of viewing how different levels of security may address different types of users for different types of use cases. And as that progresses more, we're going to see a lot more emergence within people becoming more Web3 native users. And then it's okay, now that I have this ability to transact, what am I actually going to achieve? And we're going to see the people become more native with things like non-fungible tokens, where the digital footprint they create is a combination of of strung together or composable non-fungible tokens that they have actual ownership over. So it becomes now I can own my entire digital footprint from top to bottom, and I have full control over it. And it's up to me on who I plug that into. And we have a permission, like blockchains are traditionally permissionless, but like there's also a lot of ways to look at like how permissionless can empower users who want to have ownership over that digital footprint that they're crafting in Web2 social or Web3 social, which is not akin to Web2 social at all. Like, by the time you've signed up for a traditional Web2 social app, and just to pick on Meta, it's like you've signed some sort of toss and some sort of a user agreement by the time that you've completed your sign up, which pretty much moves the rights to all of your data over to Meta itself.
True.
Yeah. I think, we're still in the early stages, and when we have more integrations is I think when it's actually really going to grow, right? Because Web3 social needs to be more than just Web2 social on chain, right? Because for the majority of the users, unfortunately, they don't care about that nuance as much as us passionate people do. And so what really drives it is, what can I do that's different on Web3 social than I can do on Web2? And we really see that as the power of the ecosystem and all the applications, right? So as an example, on Discover, we've just started doing integrations with, things like, the Magic Eden NFT exchange, where you can buy out of the feed. Once you have many different applications that are hitting all of the different parts of a crypto enthusiast life, then you're really going to start seeing more and more adoption. And then when that moves outside of just crypto applications, then people are going to really have this kind of multimedia in a different way experience on social. And I think that that'll really drive the growth.
Absolutely. Moving back to Discover, what has the timeline looked like for Discover, and how has your journey been as Web3 entrepreneurs? I'm sure it's not been easy, and we're still sort of in the bear market. We've not fully recovered, and last year was pretty heavy on quite a few entrepreneurs. A lot of firms shut down as well. So what were the impacts of the macro narrative which had sort of formed around cryptocurrencies or Web3 in general on Discover, or on you guys as entrepreneurs?
Well, quite honestly, it was a relief hitting the bear. Okay, yeah. So the bear market sucks. Like, the tokens are dropping, the users, it's really hard to attract new users because they don't see the value in the tokens anymore. FUD is vibrant and found everywhere, but like, there's another way to look at it is like you get like a little bit of breathing room to start developing and building. Like, bull market's intensity, it's just so intense. I mean, we're experiencing, what are we experiencing right now? I'm not quite sure, but like, it's the intensity. You go to Twitter and you're just like, oh my god, bonk, and all these new meme tokens. Did I get a dog with hat? No, I didn't. But like, when it's bear market, you're like, I don't need to check Twitter because there's probably nothing going on. So it's time to build. And bear market's for building. It's for about like sharpening and polishing. Yeah. And it's, to me, it gives you a lot of time to experiment with very authentic Web3 users, because they're still there through that bear market. Yeah, the token sucks, but on the other hand, we have the ability now to access users who are very passionate about Web3 and work very closely with them to figure out exactly where they think the industry is going, where we think the industry is going, and it gives lots of experimentation. And I think this is the power of the bear market is definitely there, but it does make it tough for entrepreneurs, and it does make it harder to articulate, oh, this is the value of Web3, but yeah, that token goes down a lot too.
Yeah. So I would add another interesting dynamic. I think we are more fortunate than most through a bear market, in that because we run a social media site that is about crypto, whether it's going up or it's going down, people are talking about it. So we always give the example. I remember when FTX was blowing up and all my non-crypto friends went, oh my God, like, what's going on? Are you going to be okay? And we're at like, actually, our traffic is on fire, right? Everybody was on the platform talking about FTX. So I think, transactionally, obviously, we have a lot of tokens flowing through the platform. And if you look at that as a future revenue stream, when the value of the tokens go down, then, theoretically, revenue, we're not really monetizing yet, but would go down. But on the flip side of it, the just purely social part is often, booming. So I think we're luckier than most in that aspect.
Absolutely. And I quite agree. Whenever there's any sort of news in the market around cryptocurrencies, this is one question that I get from my mother, from my grandmother, whether I'm earning, if I have enough money in my bank
Yeah.
account. I tell them I work in a media firm that writes on cryptocurrencies, but we're not cryptocurrencies themselves. So interesting angle. But if I'm not wrong, you guys are building on Solana, right? And very recently, I remember I was on a Twitter space where I was speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs who were building on Solana, and we spoke about last year how it was for them. And quite a few of them enlisted points around why they're building on Solana. Why did they choose Solana? What was it for you guys? And what are your plans in terms of building, keeping building on this blockchain, or would there be a migration?
Yeah, we started off on actually a protocol called Internet Computer, and still some of our technology is powered by the
Mhm.
decentralized technology that powers it, and they're like the AWS of decentralization, right? And for us, when we were like, we got to expand, and we looked at where's like other protocols going, and I think Solana was probably maybe at its lowest point when we made the decision. But like to me, I saw like a very vibrant community, a very vibrant ecosystem of tools, like very excited individuals who were just like, look at all the like this is what I'm building. And like they were so excited about the things that they were building. And this was I was at the Hacker House in June, I think it was. And everyone like I didn't even think like when bear market and you're in Web3, you don't think token price anymore. It just goes it goes away. But yeah, we saw a community of people and an ecosystem of tools that we were very excited to introduce to our users because we really deeply believed in this composable future of Web3 social, which Juan was describing. That like you need a lot of different things. You need to start putting them together and compose them in unique ways that address Web3 social. And to us, we saw, wow, we have the decentralized backend, the decentralized hosting, and then we have this all these other decentralized ecosystem tools that we can combine together to create the experience that you're having on Discover.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll add two more aspects. Absolutely, from the community and technical part, what Rick said, but having formerly been an investor and a trader, went back to my other partners as we were looking at other ecosystems and just talking about it. There was so much FUD around Solana, which was unwarranted because of the FTX issue, that it was really undervalued, right? And looking like from that perspective, it was ready to explode when that cleared, and that's exactly kind of what happened. But also just giving a shout out to Matt Window at Solana, who's the chief business officer. He's put together a fabulous organization. So I think we're now seeing the maturity of layer ones, where they went from a lot of just crypto guys that were very much just thinking technology to going, how do we organize a fabulous business organization that helps partners, that helps communities? And you could really tell from what Matt built that was in place. I mean, from the moment we decided we were going to go that direction, we were, connected to a fabulous kind of partner manager, Pedro. We had a fabulous tech lead, Banana, and a dozen other people that were just there to support us with incredible organization. And there are a lot of other great chains out there with amazing technology, but not all of them have an organization that's almost like a Web2 B2B SaaS company in how buttoned up it is in working with partners and building out different parts of the ecosystem. So I think we thought that is like a winning combination. If you think about what we've been explaining that we need to do, is we need to build an ecosystem of projects you can interact with in social. Well, if we're on a chain where they have such a great organization to make other projects happen, that's a benefit for us.
Absolutely. So, in terms of the top SocialFi trends in the coming year, what are you guys expecting? We're almost at the end of this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to see. I mean, wow, we're really in the next 15 days, but I do think we're kind of experiencing right now where it is transacting more marketplace features within SocialFi, the ability to transact directly out of feed. I think the 2024 is next year. Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to see, sorry, I think we're going to see highly composable SocialFi applications come out in 2024, where we go from where we're at right now, probably to 100x of like going from, the simple feature is going to be exploded into a very dynamic and multifaceted feature.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes I think about the investment side of this, and I think, because of where the market has been in a little bit of a bear, we had a lot of Web2 investors sitting on the sidelines for a while. And I think with the market coming back, that's going to turn attention again to the whole space. And it's going to be impossible to ignore social, because it's really the opportunity for the interface layer to bring the experience to more and more users, to deal with things like identity in a better way. As Rick was saying, how you interact with your wallets and like abstract away that complication. So I think as an industry trend, we're going to see more Web2 investors coming back to look at it. And that'll be great, because that capital coming in is going to supercharge the feature set and the development. So I think when that capital flows in, probably mid 2024, we're going to see a re-injection of new applications being built. And I think we may start to even see applications being built on top of the platforms. Like up until now, it's been the core platform building, whether it's us at Discover or Lens or Farcaster. And so I think we're going to see more and more of the illustrations of how these ecosystems can be interesting.
Absolutely. And finally, to wrap it up, what are some of the key expectations that you have from Discover? And are there going to be any big announcements anytime soon? How is 2024 looking for Discover?
Yeah, Discover is super excited about 2024. I think we have released a feature for streaks that plays into giving confidence and to how token drops are going to be working on Discover. And I do think there's so many features that we're rolling out and focused on 2024. But again, it's that composable future. I think we're going to nail it super hard. We're going to make it so that users can have a unique experience almost every time they interact with different applications that hopefully are embedded inside of Discover itself, and giving them access to those native Web3. Those users, Web2 users, have become native Web3 users.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a little hint that even before the end of the year, we're going to be dropping a whole new way for users to get NFTs and assets in feed.
Yeah.
And for projects or NFT creators that want to connect their creations to users to be getting that to them. But, as we've talked about, our open API is coming in 2024. We've been testing it with select partners. And so, that's really big and exciting. And then we may just have another interesting native Web3 dynamic in our pocket that really rewards users, rewards creators, helps out project partners. It really hits the trifecta of all the participants in social media that's coming. But we'll keep that a little bit more under wraps.
A lot of developments, I think, in the works.
Yeah.
Lovely. It was a great chat with you guys. And to anyone who's joined, I'll just give a quick number. We have about 750 people joining on Binance and about 60 more on the other platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. And a lot of big announcements, developments, and most importantly, rewards coming in from Discover, not just next year, but I think this year as well. Big shout out to both of you, Rick, Juan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
And I'll say one more thing. I forgot this. There is a reward coming before the end of the year for users that sign up before the end of the year. They'll get something special.
Yeah.
Let me do that.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And it was a great chat with the two of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.